Good evening, everyone. Good to see you. Very glad you're here, and thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the place where we do a little drinking and a little thinking, mostly by reading. I find that reading really stimulates your brain, gets you thinking, and that's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth, whatever. But I'm very glad to have you here, and hope you join me for a nice, relaxing cup of Earl Grey or whatever you want. Bring what you got. Doesn't matter. I won't judge. The important thing is that you enjoy yourself. And also that you learned something today that you didn't know yesterday, which is a personal goal of mine, and I think it's a worthy goal. So, anyway, that being said, cheers to you, and Jesus too. So my last episode kind of did something war related, and it kind of reminded me of a book that I read a while ago, and that book is called Is A Racket by United States General Smedley Butler, Brigadier General to be specific, and really good book. So I just wanted to share the first chapter with you all. It's pretty quick, not too long, but it's packed. It's packed with a lot of really good info. Just to give you some background on General Butler, he was an amazing guy. I'm just gonna say that, he was pretty amazing. I took this from Wikipedia, his background, his bio. I'm gonna link it below. There's a lot of other sources you can read, and I tried to pull them, but they're just kind of scattered. Some just focus on his personal life, some focus just on his military career, and they're quite dry. So the Wikipedia entry actually does a pretty good job summarizing it, and I know we really don't want to rely on Wikipedia. I highly recommend you don't rely on Wikipedia. I'll link a couple of the other sources as well, but this one summarizes it pretty nicely, so we'll just stick to this one. And it reads, let's see, Smedley Butler. Major General Smedley Darlington Butler, July 30th, 1881 to June 21, 1940, nicknamed Old Gimlet Eye, was a senior United States Marine Corps officer who fought in the Philippine-American War, the Boxer Rebellion, the Mexican Revolution, and World War I. During his 34-year career as a Marine, he participated in military actions in the Philippines, China, and Central America, the Caribbean during the Banana Wars, and France in World War I. The Banana Wars is a pretty good story, and I definitely want to cover that sometime. But if you don't want to wait around for me, I highly recommend you go to your favorite search engine, type in Banana Wars, and you'll see the United States has been messing around in Latin America for quite some time. Anyway, moving on. Butler was, at the time of his death, the most decorated Marine in U.S. history. By the end of his career, Butler had received 16 medals, 5 for heroism. He is one of 19 men to receive the Medal of Honor twice, one of 3 to be awarded both the Marine Corps Brevet Medal, along with Wendell Neville and David Porter, and the Medal of Honor, and the only Marine to be awarded the Brevet Medal and 2 Medals of Honor, all for separate actions. In 1933, he became involved in a controversy known as the Business Plot, when he told a congressional committee that a group of wealthy industrialists were planning a military coup to overthrow President Franklin D. Roosevelt, with Butler selected to lead a march of veterans to become dictator, similar to fascist regimes at the time. The individuals involved all deny the existence of a plot, and the media ridiculed the allegations, but a final report by a special House of Representatives committee confirmed some of Butler's testimony. Butler later became an outspoken critic of American wars and their consequences. In 1935, Butler wrote a book titled War Is A Racket, where he describes and criticizes the workings of the United States in its foreign actions and wars, such as those in which he had been involved, including the American corporations and other imperialist motivations behind them. After retiring from service, he became a popular advocate, speaking at meetings organized by veterans, pacifists, and church groups in the 1930s. And there it is. That's probably another thing I want to cover, the business plot. Who knows? Who knows whether or not corporations were trying to overthrow the government. Pretty interesting tale, though. But that is not the focus of today's episode. Today we are going to read War Is A Racket. And as you can see, the man was a lifelong soldier, heavily decorated, just an all-around brave, awesome guy. So he'd been in it, he'd been in the thicket. He'd been in war. He knew what it was about. He'd seen what was up, and a lot of the stuff that he saw personally, firsthand, went into this book, War Is A Racket. So I really hope that kind of sinks it in for you. Just he knows what he's talking about. This isn't just some person just ranting and raving about crazy stuff or whatever. This is a United States decorated general. So I hope that carries a little weight. His words anyway. So anyway, without further ado, like I said, the book is War Is A Racket. I highly encourage you to pick it up at your local used bookstore or your favorite online retailer. And the first chapter of War Is A Racket is actually called War Is A Racket. So but that's all we'll do, just the first chapter, which reads a little something like this. War is a racket. It always has been. It is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small, quote, inside group knows what it is about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few, at the expense of the very many. Out of war, a few people make huge fortunes. In the World War, a mere handful garnered the profits of the conflict. At least 21,000 new millionaires and billionaires were made in the United States during the World War. That many admitted their huge blood gains in their income tax returns. How many other war millionaires falsified their tax returns? No one knows. How many of these war millionaires shouldered a rifle? How many of them dug a trench? How many of them knew what it meant to go hungry in a rat-infested dugout? How many of them spent sleepless, frightened nights, ducking shells and shrapnel and machine gun bullets? How many of them parried a bayonet thrust of an enemy? How many of them were wounded or killed in battle? Out of war, nations acquire additional territory, if they are victorious. They just take it. This newly acquired territory promptly is exploited by the few, the selfsame few who wrung dollars out of blood in the war. The general public shoulders the bill. And what is this bill? This bill renders a horrible accounting. Newly placed gravestones, mangled bodies, shattered minds, broken hearts and homes, economic instability, depression, and all its attendant miseries, back-breaking taxation for generations and generations. For a great many years as a soldier, I had a suspicion that war was a racket. Not until I retired to civil life did I fully realize it. Now that I see the international war clouds gathering, as they are today, I must face it and speak out. Again they are choosing sides. France and Russia met and agreed to stand side by side. Italy and Austria hurried to make a similar agreement. Poland and Germany cast sheep's eyes at each other, forgetting, for the nonce, one unique occasion, their dispute over the Polish corridor. The assassination of King Alexander of Yugoslavia complicated matters. Yugoslavia and Hungary, long bitter enemies, were almost at each other's throats. Italy was ready to jump in, but France was waiting. So was Czechoslovakia. All of them are looking ahead to war. Not the people, not those who fight and pay and die, only those who foment wars and remain safely at home to profit. There are 40 million men under arms in the world today, and our statesmen and diplomat have the temerity to say that war is not in the making. Hell's bells, are these 40 million men being trained to be dancers? Not in Italy, to be sure. Premier Mussolini knows what they are being trained for. He, at least, is frank enough to speak out. Only the other day, Il Duce in, quote, International Consolation, the publication of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, said, quote, and above all, fascism, the more it considers and observes the future and the development of humanity quite apart from political considerations of the moment, believes neither in the possibility nor the utility of perpetual peace. War alone brings up to its highest tension all human energy and puts the stamp of nobility upon the people who have the courage to meet it. Undoubtedly, Mussolini means exactly what he says. His well-trained army, his great fleet of planes, and even his navy are ready for war. Anxious for it, apparently. His recent stand at the side of Hungary in the latter's dispute with Yugoslavia showed that, and the hurried mobilization of his troops on the Austrian border after the assassination of Dollfuss showed it too. There are others in Europe, too, whose saber-rattling presages war, sooner or later. Herr Hitler, with his rearming Germany and his constant demands for more and more arms, is an equal if not greater menace to peace. France only recently increased the term of military service for its youth from a year to 18 months. Yes, all over, nations are camping in their arms. The mad dogs of Europe are on the loose. In the Orient, the maneuvering is more adroit. Back in 1904, when Russia and Japan fought, we kicked out our old friends the Russians and backed Japan. Then, our very generous international bankers were financing Japan. Now the trend is to poison us against the Japanese. What does the, quote, open door policy to China mean to us? Our trade with China is about 90 million a year. Or the Philippine Islands? We have spent about 600 million in the Philippines in 35 years, and we, our bankers and industrialists and speculators, have private investments there of less than $200 million. Then, to save that China trade of about $90 million, or to protect these private investments of less than $200 million in the Philippines, we would be all stirred up to hate Japan and go to war. A war that might well cost us tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of lives of Americans, and many more hundreds of thousands of physically maimed and mentally unbalanced men. Of course, for this loss, there would be a compensating profit. Fortunes would be made. Millions and billions of dollars would be piled up. By a few. Munitions makers, bankers, shipbuilders, manufacturers, meat packers, speculators. They would fare well. Yes, they are getting ready for another war. Why shouldn't they? It pays high dividends. But what does it profit the men who are killed? What does it profit their mothers and sisters, their wives and their sweethearts? What does it profit their children? What does it profit anyone except the very few to whom war means huge profits? Yes, and what does it profit the nation? Take our own case. Until 1898, we didn't own a bit of territory outside the mainland of North America. At the time, our national debt was a little more than $1 billion. Then we became, quote, internationally minded. We forgot, or shunted aside, the advice of the father of our country. We forgot George Washington's warning about, quote, entangling alliances. We went to war. We acquired outside territory. At the end of the World War period, as a direct result of our fiddling in international affairs, our national debt had jumped to over $25 billion. Our total favorable trade balance during the 25-year period was about $24 billion. Therefore, on a purely bookkeeping basis, we ran a little behind year for year, and that foreign trade might well have been ours without the wars. It would have been far cheaper, not to say safer, for the average American who pays the bills to stay out of foreign entanglements. For very few, this racket, like bootlegging and other underworld rackets, brings fancy profits. But the cost of operations is always transferred to the people, who do not profit. And there you have it. War is a racket. And I'd like to make special note here. This book was written in the 30s, 1935, 36, 35. So this was obviously before Pearl Harbor. So he didn't know about, the Japanese shenanigans and stuff. However, I'd like to make special note here, right? Back in 1904, when Russia and Japan fought, we kicked out our old friends, the Russians, and backed Japan. That is 100% true. The U.S. provided financing, massive financing to Japan, and some munitions and supplies and equipment went over there to help them beat the Russians in their little war. It was called the Russo-Japanese War, 1904. Yeah, and then look what they did with that. They kicked the Russians out of the area, with a lot of our support, and then they turned around and started taking territories and committing atrocities, and eventually they wound up flying over Pearl Harbor. So, how did that work out for us by supporting the Japanese during the Russo-Japanese War? Maybe if we just stayed out of it, things might have been a little different, yeah? Or, for instance, Afghanistan. Once again, the Russians were on the receiving end of our aid, right? We backed the Mujahideen, yeah. The locals there, gave them funding and training and support to kick out those Russians, and then they turned around and pointed those guns at us and started committing atrocities and acts of terror. How odd. It's almost like there's some kind of pattern there, huh? What about Iraq? I mean, Afghanistan, we were in a 20-year war, but Iraq, look at Iraq. What happened there? Saddam Hussein, the dictator. We backed Saddam Hussein. We gave him funding and training and munitions and logistical support to help him deal with Iran in the Iran-Iraq war. And look at what happened there once again. The guy turns around and invades little Kuwait during the first Gulf War. And then a decade later, whatever, then our politicians lie to us and tell us he's got weapons of mass destruction. Then we got to go invade to kick Saddam out. And don't get me wrong, the guy was horrible. He was awful. He terrible, terrible person. But that was your taxpayer dollars at work, wasn't it? You paid for that. All those civilians he hurt, all those Kurds that he gassed and poisoned and bombed, you paid for that. A lot of it. Right? A lot of that stuff came from the Iran-Iraq war, and we provided that. You, me. So, and who profits? Who profits from all this? I mean, Vietnam, almost a decade there, right? Who profits? Right? As General Butler so adequately put it, not you, not me, not those soldiers that are sitting there, dying and bleeding in the burning sands of the desert, or sweating in the steamy, mosquito-infested jungles of Latin America, or Vietnam, or wherever. They don't profit. I mean, the soldier on the ground, sitting there in the foxhole, hoping that the next shell doesn't hit him. Where's his $1 million bonus, I wonder? Where's his golden parachute? Or his wife at home? Where's her cut? Where's her cut of the billions of dollars these war makers make? I wonder. Or what about the civilians in these countries? Right? In my last video, Nick Turse, I covered this. Civilians bear a high cost to these wars that we've been waging. And I'll link that video up to the top. I think it's a really important article. I highly encourage you to check it out. Read it for yourself. It's civilians that pay a very high cost for our wars. And where's their cut? Where's their bonus? Where's their $1 billion or whatever? Then, the weapons makers get that. Wall Street gets that. Washington, D.C. and all the bureaucrats get it. They get their nice cushy positions. They get their pensions. What do we get? once again, I don't want to steal Butler's thunder here, but it's just so accurate, so spot on with what he said. We get soldiers that come home with busted bodies and minds. We have to take care of them. We should take care of them, definitely, but, it shouldn't have happened in the first place, right? If we just keep our nose out of our own business, out of the international messes that other countries create. Well, a lot of it we create, as I just pointed out, but, we stick our noses everywhere and it doesn't belong there. Let's mind our own business. Let's keep it home. Yeah? I mean, half the problems are self-inflicted. So, right? If you have a problem, maybe stop creating the problem, right? Stop doing it. It's that easy. But I know it's hard. A lot of these millionaires and billionaires, Washington, D.C. politicians, and, there's a lot of money and power riding on it, and they don't want to see that gravy train end. So it's going to take all of us to put a stop to this, honestly. We have to stand up and tell them no. But we have to be firm. We have to be firm. Got to stand up together. It's going to take all of us. I see a lot of people, they're waiting for the guy on the white horse, and honestly, I don't think he's coming. I think we got to do this job ourselves. We got to pressure everyone involved. Our politicians, if they don't want to listen, kick them out. These billion-dollar companies, make them feel the pressure. There's nothing stopping you from writing the CEO or any, these executive staff. If you go on their websites, you can write them an email. Might not do anything, but who knows? You never know who's paying attention. Maybe you can email them the first chapter of this book and remind them what awful people they are. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just one guy. There's a lot of stuff out there I'm sure you can think of. I'm not even that bright. So, but I think what I lack in intelligence, I make up for in spirit, in gusto. So, I mean, I try. And I think that counts for something. So, I'd like a little credit, right? Anyway, like I said, you're out there. A lot of you probably work in these industries. You probably got better ideas than I got. So, if you got them, let me know. Leave me a comment. I'd love to see it, and even if you don't have any ideas, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the book or of me, whatever. I mean, I love comments. I love discussion. So, hit me, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll dismount the soapbox now. I hope you have a good weekend. Hope you have a good night. I hope you enjoy a tasty drink sometime tonight or this week, whenever. And, if you're struggling, you're having a hard time, keep you in my thoughts and prayers. I really will, got to stick together, And if you're having a good time, things are working well for you, I'll pray for you too, because I hope they keep going well. But I want to encourage you, if things are going well for you, pay it forward, right? Help somebody out who isn't doing so well. I really encourage you to do that. Because like I said, we're in this together. And if we help each other, we're stronger together than we are alone. And I know far too many people who have made it, who are successful, they're happy with their lives, and they just want to sit, And I just want to encourage you, don't do that. You made it, you got it, I got mine, whatever on you. Like, that's a bad attitude. That's not the right attitude to have, right? You got yours, that's great. Share it, pay it forward. Because you came from somewhere, I know you went through struggles, more than likely. And just help someone out. Help them overcome their struggles, whatever it is. Don't just sit in your house or whatever, driving your fancy car and thinking you got it made. Like, I just want to encourage you. Like, you can do better. Just me personally, I'm not successful by any metrics, but I try to pay it forward as much as I can. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I just want to say that I put my money where my mouth is, right? I want to help others, because if I'm down, I'd like some help too, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Anyway, I know I said I'd dismount the soapbox. sorry, I will re-dismount the soapbox, and I will wish you a very good week, very good weekend, and I think that's about it. So, take care, everyone. Good night.